whether this cut per se, and now if you look at the holistically the number and the kind of stimulus we are talking about, broadly from the central point of view, it is a 50,000 crore stimulus, including says it is additional 1 lakh crore. Then per se, this need not be the only reason to believe that there is going to be a sudden uptick in demand. So I think similar question came when there was a tax rate cut as well, and that was somewhere around 1 lakh crore demand boost, which actually government gave during the budget time. So one should look at this cumulatively and it impact panning out over next few quarters. So cumulatively in the sense there is a tax rate cut, there has been easy liquidity. Now there is this additional 1.5 lakh crore of additional stimulus, and this cumulative impact of this, along with the base effect of actually we have seen subdued growth for some time in some of this category. This combined impact, and then there is obviously the good monsoon which we are seeing now. This combined impact one should look at, and it's that impact may come in 1-2 quarter down the line. That's how I would look at it, rather than only because of the GST.
One such sector also about the elasticity of demand has been cement as well. You read a couple of brokerage notes that were mentioning about this. But for a sector like cement that hasn't done much over the last, say, year and a half or so, and now you are heading into the festive season where possibly there are hopes of demand picking up now that the monsoons will also head to an end. Does this GST rate cut also further add to the demand boost that is anticipated, thereby boosting volumes and then thereby boosting the financials of a lot of these companies?
The cement sector companies, actually, most of the companies' financials are good in this cycle so far. Most of them, obviously. In the context of the demand boost, actually, the cement demand is not too much dependent on the prices per se. So this GST rate cut in itself may not lead to cement growth as such, because cement is just one of the component of end product, whether it is a house or it is any infrastructure project. So here the demand, to expect that the demand will go up, volume growth may increase just because of this, is not the right expectations to have.
All right. And what do you make of the markets in general? Because, even as we are bombarded with good news after good news for our equity markets, be it, record SIP flows, be it something like the GDP data that came in, even the auto sales weren't particularly bad. There is the festive season ahead, and now there is the GST rationalization that has come in as a booster shot for consumption. The market's struggling at higher levels. In fact, even today it ended off the highs. So what are your thoughts on the market positioning right now? We've been underperforming the globe. So what explains this, and what do you think could change the triggers for us?
So one key factor here is definitely valuations that we should not ignore. The fact, see, we are sitting on a 3-year rolling return in mid and small cap of 23-25%. So in the large cap also these rolling returns are high. So if not as high as 23, here the returns are somewhere around 15-16% or 17-18% odd in the large cap. I'm talking about 3-year rolling return. So when you're sitting on that kind of return, especially in the mid and small, and that's where you're seeing the mid and small is not moving much. So first of all, as when it comes to the consumption stories representation is more in the large cap. It is upwards of 70%, while consumption stories representation is less in the mid cap. It is around 50-55%. So, and that's where that impact you are not seeing commensurately in these two indices. Secondly, when we are looking at the valuations and very high gains what we had, definitely even after some of these corrections which we have seen, the valuations are reasonable, but they may not be attractive. And thirdly, on the flows front, especially if you have seen that the flows from the domestic is definitely good, but FIS flows has had some challenges for some time. And that actually is also impacting the market returns. If you see, there have actually in last 1 year, some of the emerging markets have done much better, especially because of the flows and various developments in those markets, particularly. So these are the multiple reasons why the returns you are not seeing commensurate to the announcements.
All right, Shreyas, thank you so much for joining in. All things that we need to watch out for now is earnings pickup and perhaps some moderation in valuations, time correction, maybe if not price correction that we're seeing right now. But thank you so much for joining in with your views. With that, we'll wrap up on this edition of Markets Forward. Stay tuned to CNBC TV18. We'll be back with more news and updates on the other side. A lot of commentary coming in on all things GST and from regulators, along with big voices in the markets, along with the big voices in Delhi.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this special broadcast. I'm Shereen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. India gets ready to usher in a new GST regime from the 22nd of September. From daily essentials to cars and bikes, tax rates will be lowered for several items as the government hopes to boost consumption. The government estimates a revenue hit of 48,000 crore rupees. Automobile stocks hit the highest level in nearly a year as the GST cut on small cars and bikes lifts sentiment. The effective tax rate on SUVs and luxury cars will also drop to 40% as the compensation cess ends. But two-wheeler makers fear higher taxes on bikes above 350cc could adversely impact the segment. From soaps to toothpaste, majority of personal care and home care items will see GST drop to 5%. Textile and apparel industry will also benefit as key inputs and finished products will now fall under the 5% tax slab. In a bid to boost infra and construction, GST on cement lowered from 28% to 18%. Individual health and life insurance is now exempt from GST, but industry fears costs will rise without benefits under the input tax credit. The Sensex and the Nifty give up early gains to end flat after profit booking coming in late trade. Mid-cap see sharper cuts. The rupee weakens marginally against the dollar.
This reform is not just on rationalizing rates. It's also on structural reforms. It's also on ease of living. Rate rationalization, of course. We've reduced the slabs. There shall be only 2 slabs. And we are addressing also the issues of compensation cess. Ease of living, simplifying registration, return filing and refunds. Levied on common man's daily use items have gone through a rigorous looking into. And in most cases, the rates have come down drastically.
The union government and states have undertaken a massive overhaul of the country's goods and services tax regime in a bid to boost consumption ahead of the festive season. Prime Minister Modi had announced the next generation GST reforms from the ramparts of the Red Fort during his Independence Day speech. But here is what has finally happened. The GST Council, India's apex decision-making body on GST, has decided to scrap the 12% and the 28% tax slab. So now you have 2 main slabs of 5%, 18%, and a new slab of 40% for sin and super luxury good items. Now, the rationale is that this rationalization exercise of moving to a 2-slab structure will make compliance easier and will also boost consumption. So that 40% slab is for limited goods only. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who is the chair of the GST Council, said that the call to cut rates was a unanimous one. There was no disagreement among states. While some states had raised concerns about revenue protection, but there was no disagreement. There was no voting. Remember, in the 8-year history of the GST, there has been all decisions taken by consensus, by unanimity. Now, here's what happens. Nearly 99% goods that were previously in the 12% slab are shifting to the 5% slab. So that's a big one coming in there for you. And items there will start to see the new rates coming in from the 22nd of September. The products in this basket will include daily essentials like toothpaste, footwear below 2,500 rupees, fertilizers, tractors, electric vehicles, finished textile products. So that is what happens to the 12% to 5% slab. Now let's focus on the 18% GST slab. Remember, the 18% GST slab is going to be the one where around 90% products that were earlier in the 28% bracket have been moved into. So close to 90% goods previously in 28% now move down to the 18% slab. This includes things like cement, small cars, televisions, bikes with an engine capacity of below 350cc, air conditioners, refrigerators, among a whole host of other items. So that is the 18% slab for you. Individual health and life insurance premia, which were earlier in the 18% slab, have now been exempt from the GST, but industry fears the costs will rise without the benefits under the inverted duty structure as well as the input tax credit. The centre is bracing for an impact of 48,000 crore rupees on account of the GST overhaul. Well, to take us through the impact in the near term as well as the medium to long term, we're joined by a panel of industry leaders who head various committees at the Confederation of Indian Industry. With us, Dr. Naresh, Trehan, the chairman and MD of Medanta. Also with us, Madhavkrishna Singhania, joint MD and CEO of JK Cement, and Deepak Shetty, the CEO and MD of JCB India. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here. Doc, I can see you're driving your way from one point to another, but let's talk about what the new GST regime is going to mean as far as healthcare services are concerned. There's been a whole bunch of changes on drugs under the oncology bracket, on life-saving medicines, etc. The big impact for healthcare.
Okay, so this is a very, very positive move by the government. Basically, to be able to enable more and more people to be able to afford healthcare services. So First of all, it falls into the insurance sector where premiums have been reduced or made to zero from 18% GST. So if the public has to pay premium, they don't have to pay 18% extra tax on it, which is a big boon for the whole sector. So what we are anticipating is that this will enable a lot of people to access healthcare, many more people. It will broaden the base of insurance companies, and many more people will come into the net for be able to afford healthcare from now on, which is a very good move for the public. The second thing that has happened is that critical medicines, which are cancer drugs mainly and other rare disease drugs, which are quite costly, are actually now going to be either exempt to 0% or more have been moved from percent to 5%. So this is again going to cost less in our ability to deliver healthcare to our patients. So this is another big move. Now the third is that on consumables and also on import of equipment and all that again GST has been reduced to 5%, which will enable us to be able to do the tests, diagnostic tests at a much cheaper price. So I think overall it has helped actually the healthcare sector, the insurance sector, and also the public at large, which is the main beneficiary of all these moves. So I must thank the government and the state for actually going along with it. And this was a long-standing need, which is now fulfilled. So I think this is all positive from our point of view.
A long-standing need. But Dr. Trehan, before I let you go, you talked about what this is going to mean as far as the end consumer is concerned. For instance, on account of the GST reduction on imported medical equipment, so the cost of diagnosis, the costs of tests, what can the consumer expect in terms of the benefit?
See, whatever benefit the providers are getting has to be passed on to the patient, so that they feel the benefit of what the government has done. So in other words, we have to be very transparent in what benefits we are getting, and those have to be sorted out, factored in, and those benefits should be passed on to the public at large.
Right, Dr. Trehan, many thanks for joining us there en route to a destination. But let me go across to Madhavkrishna Singhania, Joint MD and CEO of JK Cement. Mr. Singhania, many thanks for joining us. This was a long-standing demand of the cement sector. Why are we in the 28% slab? There's no reason for us to be considered either luxury or sin. And finally, that has been rectified now down to 18%. What do you believe the near-term implications and the impact will be?
So Shereen, firstly, thank you for having me here on this show. And I'd like to first congratulate the Honorable Prime Minister as well as the Finance Minister for undertaking such bold and transformative reforms. As far as the cement sector was concerned, it's been a long-standing demand to bring cement from the 28% slab to the 18% slab. But due to the revenue loss issues, for whatever reason, this could not take place in the past. I'd like to say that cement is probably one of the basic building materials for any nation. And by this rate coming down, the individual home builder will probably be the most benefited, because his cost of construction will definitely marginally come down. There may not be a price elasticity gain, but it's possible that he may maybe build one more room or a little larger square footage of his house. The second is the cost of infra projects will definitely come down. So that is another big sort of boost, because capex spending is something the government has been focusing on. And thirdly, a request which has always been there is to reduce the various types of cess and bring it as a part of, so that the input credit on the same is available. And that has actually happened in terms of coal, because while the GST on coal has gone up from 5 to 18%, but the compensation cess, which used to be there at 400 rupees a ton, has actually been absorbed as a part of GST. So the input tax of the same is available to the industry. So, I would say even in terms of CII, what we've been advocating, 4 slabs to 2 slabs, ease of doing business, bringing down, consumer costs, boosting demand, as well as bringing the various cesses into GST is truly commendable.
Yes, that merger of the cesses into the GST rate itself has taken place across a whole bunch of sectors, from aerated drinks to, in fact, luxury cars, and of course, as you spoke there about coal as well. But, you know, as far as the cost of infrastructure projects are concerned, Madhav, and that's what I want to discuss with you. You said that you expect, infrastructure projects to get more competitively priced on the back of the GST cuts that have been announced. What could we see in terms of reduction of costs?
See, Shereen, it depends from project to project in terms of what is the cement cost of that particular project. It's tough to, put a definite number there, but I would say definitely a few percentage points reduction is something which could be possible. And given the budget of, over 11 lakh crores, it will still be a significant number.
What about capacity utilization for you currently, Madhav? There's been a fair degree of consolidation as well in the cement sector, but if the hope is that this is going to boost consumption, how are you doing as far as production capacity is concerned?
So, Shereen, if you look at the industry in general, the industry demand has been quite good. Even in terms of the core sector demand this year, over the last 4 months, we've seen about an 8% demand growth. As a company, we have given a double-digit sort of, capacity growth in terms of our production and our sales. Even in terms of our capacity, we are, there was a huge debate around capex spends for private sector. But as far as JK Cement is concerned, we have actually gone from a capacity of about 14.5 million in 2019 to 30 million this year, and have already announced another 4,800 crore investment for a 7 million ton capacity enhancement. So as far as we are concerned, we are definitely, spending and a part of the private capex spend.
Okay, let me bring in Deepak Shetty, the CEO and MD of JCB India, to take forward where Madhav left off. Mr. Shetty, many thanks for joining us. On balance, the hope is that this is going to boost consumption demand and also investment demand. So what impact do you see? How are you preparing yourself for these changes?
First of all, thank you for having me here. And I would again start with congratulating the Honorable Prime Minister and the Finance Minister for their vision. As the Honorable Finance Minister said, this is a structural reform that they have introduced. It's not only about ease of living. I would say it is also ease of doing business. From multiple slabs moving into 2 slabs brings that amount of clarity. And here is particularly when I look at our MSME partners, people running the small industries, for them this sort of clarity really helps. There are 2 sectors. Madhav spoke about cement sector. I think the huge impact on infrastructure development with the reduction in the GST on various input parameters. I think general wisdom is around 40% of the cost of a project is contributed by, say, steel, cement, and other inputs. And this will certainly help improve the infrastructure sector. Last few years, the Honorable Finance Minister has been focusing on infrastructure sector. So that is certainly very positive. The second element and the focus has been on the rural economy. The reduction in input cost on the from the rural side also will spruce up the rural economy. GST reduction on tractors will bring again a change. It will further enhance the use of mechanization in the agriculture sector, which again is very, very important for us to scale up the agriculture sector. So that is certainly very positive. And also the daily use items on which the government has focused. This puts more money in the hands of the consumer. So along with this, FMCG, also some of the other purchases. Just to give an example, 65% of the construction equipment is sold in rural India. So more than 70% of JCB machines are sold in rural India. And I'm sure the rural customers who get benefit of this, the GST, as you're rightly saying, the GST bonanza, they will use it not only to buy cars, but also buy construction equipment, which also creates jobs and also is a revenue generator. So overall, very, very positive for these critical sectors.
Positive sentiment there coming in across the board, and the hope is that this will spur demand. And remember, 22nd of September is when these new rates kick in. That coincides with the festive season, with the start of the Navratra period, and that is what the government is hoping will ensure that this is in fact a bountiful festive season for OEMs. But Madhav, Dr. Trehan and Deepak Shetty, many thanks for joining us here on the GST Centimeter to take us through what this means for industry and what it means for the consumer. We'll head into a break, but up next, an exclusive with the CBIC Chairman Sanjay Kumar Agarwal on the GST reforms. Key questions answered. Stay tuned.